Let the chaos reign. Chaos Reign presents Can There Be Order Without Chaos? With special guest Ike Ogiamien. Broadcast December the 27th, 2020. Enjoy.
On the shore, relentless in the war, the legions in our hearts, shed what has been our ball. The spirit and the flesh, the emotions at the rest, the cerebral will contest, propelling the unrest. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand, stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Of a blade, with gratitude and rage, we touch another page with delirious delight, impervious to light. This vitality and might encourages the flight. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within.
The views expressed on Talk Real Solutions, hosted by Tyrone Thompson at TalkRealSolutions.com, are the views of Tyrone Thompson and do not reflect the views of TalkRealSolutions.com, YouTube, or etc. The content here belongs to Talk Real Solutions and its many contributors. Views and opinions expressed by all contributors belong to them and not TalkRealSolutions.com or Tyrone Thompson, the host, or etc. All data and information provided on the site is for informational purposes only. Talk Real Solutions makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, correctness, suitability, or validity of any information on this site and will not be liable for any errors, omissions, or delays in this information or any losses, injuries, or damages arising from its display or use. All information is provided on an as-is basis.
In a world where there's crime, corruption, violence, murder, rape, theft, and all forms of atrocities that plague the world in which we live in today. What you're witnessing, we are living in a state of chaos, and it'll take a much greater or extremer chaos to restore the order in which the world we live in today. Good evening, black people. This is Chaos Reign here. And tonight's stream, in which to cap 2020. It's going to be very interesting and good stream. But before I go into the title of today's stream, I would like everybody to go to talkrealsolutions.com. On the website, you see the latest articles, news that shows current events and things that's going on here in the West we call America and potentially abroad. Also on the website, there is still a list of black-owned banks and some other businesses that's listed on the website. And if you feel so inclined to, if you like most of the work on T.R.S, you could contribute through the donation tabs. But all the information is on the website. So go to talkrealsolutions.com. Trust me, you won't regret it. Also, you could also subscribe to Chaos Reign channel as well. I have a YouTube channel. And I think moving forward, going on to 2021, I probably will display some links for people to potentially contact me for if they want to do interviews on Chaos Reign channel. And if you want to follow me on social media outlets, I will start revealing that moving forward in the 21st century, particularly in 2021, which now we're in the generation portion of this century. So, you know, we're going to see some really good, interesting things moving forward for Chaos Reign channel. So be on the lookout. Also, to let everybody know, one thing what I was trying to do, I was trying to go back through certain archives to find the very first, I guess, stream I did here on T.R.S, because this now marks roughly 5 years now. So, you know. Also, you can find this stream on Facebook, T.R.S Facebook group. If you're not familiar with T.R.S on Facebook, just type in Talk Real Solutions. And there's also a chat room as well. So I believe when you like the page, you're also getting tired to be joined into the chat, the group chat. Which a lot of interesting things go around back and forth with the chat. I don't want to go in detail, but like I said, to know that you have to go on the like page on Facebook to subscribe to that. And this stream is also on Talk Real Solutions on YouTube as well. So, you know. But I think that's pretty much all the links I will give out. So now let's go into the subject at hand. All right, let's check. Okay, wonderful. Tonight's subject, Chaos Reign presents, can there be order without chaos? And my special guest tonight to help me and him, or he would explain this more in detail, none other than Ike Ogiamien. So Ike, if you're there, please press *61. Ogiamien. All right, everybody. As I present to you for the very first time here on Talk Real Solutions, the one and only Ike. Good evening, sir. Are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you loud and clear. Loud and clear. Yes, yes.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yes. Welcome, Ike, for the very first time here on T.R.S, or like I say, the Chaos Reign channel. And before we go to delve into this deep rabbit hole in regards to the chaos, I'd like to take a step back a moment in time before we jump into the present and potentially the future. So for the first time on Talk Real Solutions, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Excellent. So my name is Ike. I am a fellow YouTuber, I would say, first and foremost, vis-a-vis this particular format that we're on. And I'm somebody that is a doer. So my channel is about being better and doing better with a strong emphasis on doing. I am an engineer and an entrepreneur. And also I participate in music and certain other things. I put on a few hats, but I'm someone who's generally motivated by improvement and understanding in general.
Excellent. Well, Ike, so the question that I guess I told you ahead of time on the subject, depending if you have a dissertation to go in detail, that's fine. We do have time. So as far as you want to be detailed, it's cool. There will be no holding back. The question I pose out here is, or what they call the chaos theory or chaos order, or there's many words they call it. But one thing that I never answered this question myself, because I view the world as is and take it as what we see fit. But really, truly, can there really be no order without chaos? Or that's just some type of myth, or that's something that we just contemplate too much, or is something that they just create out of thin air? I don't know if you can answer that.
Well, we have to approach it piece by piece, right? This is something that has many aspects to it. And so I would like to mention the trivial aspect, right? In other words, let's mention the obvious first. The obvious is that chaos and order are self-defining complementary opposites in terms of like two sides of a coin, right? So we have to say that first and foremost, right?
Okay.
In the sense that just in terms of definitions, there are certain things that are self-defining, like chaos and order, the yin and yang, the two sides of the coin. One is about the absence of the other, that kind of a thing, right? So in that sense, which is a trivial sense, which just needs to be mentioned out the gate, yes, of course, there cannot be chaos without order because that's how the language game is working over there. But then if you take it a little bit into the empirical world, if you will, right, like a lot of the order that we create, right, from, let's say, with technology, let's say, right, is working in it needs chaos. In other words, entropy and chaos is the way of the universe, generally speaking, you know, and entropy meaning that the world is always moving, by that I mean the universe, right, always moving towards a state of higher disorder, right, going from an ordered state to to a more disordered state. And that particular aspect of things is harnessed, that chaos is harnessed and used by technology as a source, like similar to like riding a wave as a surfer, you know what I mean? So the refrigerator uses the heat, like the chaos of the outside universe. It uses that differential as what they call a hot sink. If you want to just talk like mechanical engineering wise, so on and so forth. In other words, so in that sense, even to create a certain amount of order, like let's say with life, for example, which tends to reverse entropy, it needs to create more chaos outside, right? It's almost like maybe I'm going a little. As I said, we have to take it piece by piece. So I already stated.
Yeah, take your time. Take your time, because this is something that to tackle. Because this is something that I always left back in my head years ago. Because I've been hearing so much this loosely word of chaos, and the background story of me, how I came up with this term, which I call my program, is something that I came a thought of head first. Years ago, I would say roughly either 8 or 7 years ago. And it all started when I draw the symbol from what you see, the avatar. That symbol you see that I draw, that you sometimes see that pop up, that is a new symbol. But the original symbol I drew years ago started off from my thought that, you know, it's something that I picture in my head that I create out of nothing, and I put forth by paper into physical reality. You know, and it just came abruptly that I never thought why I called it this or call myself that. But when I look at the world as is, it is a suitable name for what I call myself. Now, how chaotic I can go, that is determined how I take it. But nonetheless, it's something that I always view, and it was something that put the thought, and eventually I make in return reality through image. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I just kind of stated a couple of basic, one logical thing about the complementarity, and then also one kind of reference to how the universe works, generally speaking, and then the order of entropy, blah, blah, blah. But then, if you consider, let's say, growth, okay, especially in the world of human endeavors, right? But growth is chaotic, even in terms of, let's say, the destruction of old cells and the building of new ones, or the caterpillar to the butterfly, so on and so forth. But also, let's just take business growth, right? So the point is, when you're growing in any kind of endeavor, it's almost like juggling, right? So there's chaos, there's a higher level of risk, and so on and so forth. The point is, you're trying to juggle, but you're trying to build a shelf for these particular things that you're juggling to land on safely, but you got to juggle it in the middle of it. You got to juggle in the middle of it because you're growing, right? So you're always expanding. You're always throwing your problems you're throwing disorder into the future, in other words, right? You're like, okay, you're taking in more work than you typically are used to or can or whatever, and this is what growth looks like. Otherwise, you're never quite at 100% ready for growth is what I'm saying, and that's why it tends to lead to disorder. But it is the only way that it can go, especially like exponential growth. So it looks chaotic, right? So speaking to that whole point of chaos versus order, you're trying to build an order, a business, something that is thriving, right? But the process of growth, whether we look biologically or then again we said in terms of a business enterprise, sales, marketing, so on and so forth, it's disorderly, it's chaotic. But that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that exponential growth, that chaotic time. You're like, oh, my God, how are we going to meet that stuff? I had to buy a new building in 2018, and then we got that contract, blah, blah, blah. It's all crazy, It's quite disorderly. But in order to build a new order, that's kind of so that's another aspect. I don't know if you had any comments about it's kind of like a business kind of way of looking at that thing. But then there are many other regards as well,
Excellent. From your own experience, do you find, I would say, human beings in the present state, do you feel that in this structured environment that is constantly ever changing, that does it bring the best or the worst of us through reality or this environment that we do not control? But do you think it's bringing more of the best of us or just more of the worst of us, as in regards to when we're now living in more of a technical age? I don't know if that's a question to ask.
Okay, so I would perhaps let me know if I'm getting the premise of your question correct. It would seem like, we're living in a certain age now where the changes in the environment are of a particular nature that is quite different from the environment that we had for the larger portion of our past, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, okay, so if you look backwards, huge chunk of our history, we're very, very different. Right now is a very, very small slither of time. So I would say that generally speaking, when we look back and then project forward, all the chaos, from the expansion of the universe and so on and so forth, we tend to look at it regardless as progress, right? We have a chronological bias, let's say, if you will, right? So we tend to look at, we tend to think like, evolution, which means progress, which means it's better, right? Back in the Big Bang till now, the expansion of the universe is just another way of talking about the increase in entropy, on and on. This is progress, right? So that shift now, which is now more rapid, and it's mainly in the digital space, right? Let's just, right? And this digital space, which is also the realm of communications and so on and so forth, I would say like it'll be as substantial as the printing press, for example, right? The changes that were wrought on the world as a result of the printing press being invented were monumental. And I think that the current means of the current mediums, or media rather, right? The current means, this digital era, will be also quite monumental in terms of its impact. But it's relatively too soon to tell. But generally speaking, it'll end up being, for the most part, another kind of very pragmatic tale of, well, somebody had to take advantage of it, someone had to control it, someone had to win, someone had to lose, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, some people will win, some people will lose, some people will have taken advantage of it, some people will be mercenaries, some people will be this, some people will be pure victims, you know. So that drama will play itself out as usual, right?
All right, excellent, excellent. And let me give a call number for those who want to call in. The call number for tonight's show is 712-770-4160. The access code is 977-194#. I repeat, 712-770-4160. The access code is 977-194#. Tonight's subject, I title this, or what is titled, Can There Be Order Without Chaos? With my special guest, Ike. And did I say last name right? Ogiamien? I don't know if I pronounced it.
It's Ogiamien.
Ogiamien. Okay, perfect. All right, well, close. Okay, excellent. And, you know, because I have been following you now lately, Ike, for, I would say, a month and a half now, because I told you I came across you by another woman from the UK, Miss X, and she kind of advertised you through some of her live streams, and I've been familiar with you with other streams for your donations, but when I actually see some of your works, I was very impressed. And one thing that drew me more to your channel is how in-depth detail of the analysis of certain books and certain things that we do not really pay attention to much, you know, especially from other thinkers. And I always think, say, with all the amount of reading and, you know, summaries, I always think, how can I really compile or utilize from what other people think and try to apply it in my own life in a way? Because during the time, depending on when it was written, was a moment where, you know, when we look at ourselves now, everybody goes for a different journey, you know, but there's some always constant, you know, that we always try to search for meaning and purpose as human beings. We don't really think about it, but always in life, there's always the question that we sometimes put in the back in our head, say, why I'm here for, what's my purpose, am I here for the greater good, or I'm here just to live an experience. I hope that makes sense to you, Ike.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, definitely the last part. I mean, I don't know, did you throw a question in there, or?
No, I was going for, I just want you to follow me for a second. Just want to make sure.
Okay, yeah, I definitely follow to that point. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, so at times, you know, the people that interact during your streams and the ones, the guests that you come across, you be asking the very much deeper questions that some of us that we don't really put to thought or we can't answer. And it's not for anybody to be discouraged, but it's always a good way to really test ourselves, to really start questioning the oneself, you know. And that's one thing I kind of appreciate, you know. I think it's not really much known on YouTube overall, you know. A lot of us, when we come here, we think we just consume this information, digest this media, but we never really apply to how can I really utilize it for my betterment overall, you know.
Yeah. I mean, look, that thing is always because when you talk about it applying, right, because it's something that has come up in the beginning, what you said, and how you kind of close, this kind of application of stuff. Now, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where you have to get on the bicycle and then fall off. That's where there's a lot of chaos. okay?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes,
In order
correct.
for growth. That's why it's scary, and it's like, let's not go there and let's not really talk about it, because it's better to just stay on order land. In order land, text land, ideal land, abstract land, we can just talk about it, and maybe we feel a little better about it. But in bringing it about, that's when you have to fall and scrape the knee and all this disorder. That tends to be part of any learning, any growing, right? So it's something that is always there, and one way to put it, it's almost like, let's say you take the Buddhist approach, and by broad strokes now, right? Broad strokes in terms of the fact that that life is suffering is one of the first major truths, right? In terms of that whole system, right? And also, if you look at the system of like original sin, if you come from the Christian side, or if you just take the whole, let's say, modern, mundane, psychological health type point of view, you will see, or you will come up with the point that, well, life is a problem to be solved, right? Not just a thing that passively happens, right? But it is great, and none of us want to go, but it's almost like baked in the pie. Maybe it's part and parcel of being great is the fact that it has these scary, sharp corners, dark alleys, chaos. In order to make growth, what won't kill you make you stronger type of dynamic to it. It's like a use it or lose it. Like you need to hammer away in order to stay alive. You know, like in other words, if you don't use your muscles, if you don't stress them out, push them beyond their boundaries so that they reach the limit and then come back stronger, blah blah blah, you actually atrophy, right, and die, right? Same thing with your bones, same thing with your immune system, same thing with your psyche, right? The old wise people are wise because they went through some crap, right? That's how they got wise, right? That's kind of how it is. It's same thing with your bones, muscles, the ecosystem, the survival of that's how biological systems work, and generally complex systems work. They need to get beat up, right, in order for them to actually work well. So it's kind of interesting how you brought up the whole practice and put into practice. Well, yes, the practice stuff is where the rubber meets the road. It's also where the chaos is, but it's where you need to have an understanding that chaos. I just look at it as look at everything like riding a bicycle, right? And then you just got to understand that there's going to be some falling involved, and you can color up, you can stretch out the amount of times you fall within a week. Let's say you need to fall 10 times to ride a bicycle or something like that, or whatever. But basically what I'm saying is, generally speaking, one thing you can do is just extend how long it takes you to do something, okay? Rather than just fall often, you're like, oh, I'm going to fall only once a year, and it just takes you 10 years to do it. Rather than falling once a month. And in about a year and a half, you're on your way. But the point is, you're going to need certain things, you're going to need to fall a certain number of times.
Yep. Yes. That's a really excellent example, because we all know when we were young, and there's some things we're afraid to do, but especially when we think that there's going to be pain involved. And I think pain is the best teacher for average human beings, because it tells you where you stand, what you could tolerate, what you can't tolerate. I think one of the weaknesses we experience in this life as men is the fear of failure. I think it's the biggest challenge we could face right now as men, failure. And I think a lot of men, young black men, particularly that's, let's say, 18 to, let's say, in their 30s or whatever, they have not really attempted to really fail, like to fall down and figure out how can I stop falling down until I get comfortable like a bike, ride upward without wobbling and just like it becomes easy. But the journey of how to balance yourself is the challenge in itself. I think even my own experience that even I'm not going to go too deep with myself, but like I said, I tried to find other ways to make other income. One of the few things I've learned is that if I don't throw money in the bucket, it will not come to fruition. That means I have to spend some money to eventually, hopefully, to make some money or some money in return. Now, mind you, it was not successful, but nonetheless, I have started to develop a habit to start to try other means of other ways to make money, you know. And I think when you're younger, that drive, that hunger, depending on the person, is a little bit more. But like I said, you can be complacent as a man, depending if you're comfortable. And I tell every young man to hear my voice that if you're younger, because me and Ike, we're in your, you know, we're up there in age, you know, that if you're trying to do something different and get a better outcome, I advise to fall many times before you could fully stand up. And the reason why I say this is because you don't want, as a person, become, let's say, our age or older, and you look back in life and never really challenge yourself to try to do something different, to get a different outcome. And that's the beautiful thing about as you get older, you always reflect what you really did wrong and what things you could do now improvement. And look back, say, to the future. The future could be good if we take action now. So that's a little short.
So the way in which, because what I see, the through line that you have there was about the way in which you fail systematically and remove the stigma away from failing, understanding that failure is part of a process, that kind of a thinking, right?
Yes, correct.
Basically, if you ask, right, okay, well, how can we get into that? Because in other words, it's a reality. It's not like you're going to sidestep this. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So it's just a question of knowing it up front. It's almost like, oh, well, these are the rules of the game. Oh, if I know the rules of the game, oh, it's the game where we're driving around the track, but we get to crash into each other. So, okay, cool, I get it. I put on my bumper, whatever. I put on my helmet. You know, that's kind of like, it's like, okay, these are the rules. There's no way you can change it, no way you can game it, right? And I think that looking into certain, let's say, industries, because you then mentioned incomes after that.
Yeah.
There's certain industries that kind of have that ethos of, like, expansion. They have the ethos of, like, failing forward. In other words, a startup kind of mentality. Now, I know that only a small percentage of people are really creating, let's say, value in going just headlong into this entrepreneurial or startup world. But basically, the world around it, the ethos around it is that, yeah, you're going to try a couple of things, you're going to learn, and everybody's going to know, oh, there are a couple of stupid things that you don't do, and maybe that's only for beginners or whatever, blah, 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 that kind of a thing, right? But that world has that mentality that, oh, yeah, we're all going to be doing silly things over here and learning when we try to cast our net into the market. As you said, money, right, which is kind of the net, because the money is going to get you time, attention, certain things, a net, right? And then you were not able to reel anything. Anyway, so you're going to learn from the real environment, right? And this kind of in other words, I think that a business/entrepreneurial world, or a world of just looking at the marketplace actively and with consciously, if you will, gives you the understanding like, oh, okay, the failure is kind of like the name of the game, you know, in terms of learning, number one. And then number two, in terms of, especially if you're trying to compete, like this, look, competing, if you think about perfect competition or certain kinds of competition, let's say the restaurant business, right? Restaurant business is very competitive, right? Therefore, the restaurant business has very thin margins. Therefore, a lot of restaurants go out of business, right? So
yeah, in the first year or two, I believe. I could be wrong.
Yeah, generally speaking, that's kind of how. That's if you're not bringing anything particularly different and a lot of times the way to get over this is kind of like certain kinds of services, certain kind of whatever it is you're bringing. Let's say selling some kind of you're bringing in dollars, right? You're not bringing something tangible and different. It is hard to corner any particular market, especially a market where there's a lot of competition, and we use the restaurant because that's one that we intuitively know about the restaurant business and how tough it is and so on and so forth. So there are other avenues that are not as competitive in that regard as restaurants, but where you have to go in and fail and learn and pivot and grow and actually have a solid reality. Like, it's better to have a customer, and I know that I'm going on different tangents here, but they all relate, right?
Yeah, I'm following. Keep going.
It's better to have a customer than a business plan. It's almost like obviously, right? But the point is, a lot of people sit down and want to plot out everything on some clean sheet of graph paper and 8.5 by 11 Excel whatevers, right? But the thing is, that's not how things work, right? That's not how things work in real life. In real life, it's better to have a customer or a series of customers or a particular node in the network that will teach you. So you find product market fit. Like, let's say, for example, Facebook, right? Facebook started at Harvard with a particular crew. That's where it was kind of tested out, right? So it was more important to the survival of Facebook that it actually had those. Okay, we're gonna do it here because you're gonna get rid of certain kinks there. You know what I mean? You're gonna learn about the market. You're gonna create a better product market fit, and on and on and on and on. So it's better to do that than to just be like, oh, I'm plotting it all, and then it's all going to be just one big release, which happened recently with something called, I believe it was called Quibi or something, right? Some media.
Quibi. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, Quibi. Well, anyways, they kind of did this kind of old school kind of way of approaching things, or this other approach, I don't know if it's old school or not, where they just wanted to kind of market their way in. Like, oh, we got this former CEOs together here in the marketing thing. They're funded by these big people. We're going to make this new media thing, and we're going to buy a bunch of ads on YouTube about it, and so on and so forth. But anyways, in other words, granular, hitting the chaos, right? Because it always goes back to the chaos, right? That's why I'm using these business analogies, right? When you're granular, you're learning and you're getting shaped by the market. That's the chaos you're dealing with. That's the thing that's giving you the feedback, and you're growing from there. That way you're ready. After you finish Harvard, you're ready to add more universities. And after you add all the colleges, then you're ready to add the world, that kind of thing.
So, in other words, like, there's always a testing ground. Like, for example, Facebook was just that testing ground. Because it started, like I said, back in the dormitories of in college for Mark Zuckerberg, and throughout that, he got the popularity with other young adults in his, in his school, and it started to branch out to other universities. And lo and behold, within that, I guess, same year, he became like a full LLC business, where he got his first loan, And I think the movie Facebook, if you remember watching it, and I think it came out years ago, maybe almost a decade ago, or 11 years ago. 11 years ago, explains the story, what went into it. So I advise everybody watch it for yourself. But yeah, that's how things really start. You want people to take liking of it, then they spread the word, then the word becomes gold, and everybody follows, and eventually you have an actual functioning business. It's like this. There's no bad publicity or any marketing in regards to how you try and push your products or anything. You get me? Because at the end of the day, the consumer is the end product. And the consumer doesn't like it, it does not exist. It will not live. It will die in its tracks. You get me?
That is something I strongly believe in. I believe in selling and marketing. And people look at it, if you want to look at it as a dirty word, you can pick whatever other word you would choose. In other words, having to deal with someone else's opinion really is what we're saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the opinion of the market, right? So if you don't like calling it selling, you say, okay, well, having to deal with other people's opinion and presenting yourself, which is the marketing aspect, in a certain way that appeals to them, is necessary as the social mammal that you are, right?
Yes.
So, anyways,
yes. Mm-hmm.
One more thing I was going to add, if I may.
Go ahead. Take your time. Go ahead. Yes.
So there is something, too, because we've been saying a lot about how chaos tends to play a role. We talk about how chaos plays a role in terms of defining that chaos and order are intertwined, that, the universe has this kind of entropy disorder thing which we take advantage of in terms of technology, that there's a certain amount of disorder that is required in order to create potential, gravitational potential, for example, water falling from up, down, or electrical potential, charges going from positive to negative. These kinds of poles, okay, or magnetic polarity, these kinds of poles, extremes, create the ability for energy to flow. It's almost like this whole field, whether it be gravitational field, electromagnetic field, and then the forces in the middle of the nuke, all that stuff. We've been saying, okay, chaos kind of plays an important role in that, but we've not really focused on order, right? So the first thing I'm going to say about order is a negative thing, okay? Because here's the thing about order. Order is the kind of thing where it's like, okay, we don't need to come in and say why. It's almost like it needs no defense. It's almost like there is almost like, okay, we understand why order is there. Okay, we're not going to be over here saying 100% chaos. What does that even mean? Nothing exists in 100% chaos, right?
Correct.
So order almost like, it's like you assume that. It's chaos first and foremost that we have to kind of give its due and say, hey, look, hey, it's got to play a role too for the order. It's always qualified with the order. But let's just talk about order itself. And one reason why order is not always desirable, and if we put it now in the social context, in terms of social-political context, let's say, if you're talking about any kind of order, let's say it's a family order, this family business order or national order or whatever the order might be, tends to, especially as the generations move ahead, tends to need chaos in order to keep them from atrophying, from getting corrupted, in other words. And the corruption tends to be of the sort whereby the original goal and the spirit of the order or the original order creator, let's say the first patriarch of this particular family or whatever they were into and whatever they established, in other words, the conqueror, right? The Genghis Khan, whoever this first person was that established this particular order, a couple generations down, there tends to be a loss in the spirit and also the goals, and also because of the objective changes in the world, right? Just due to objective changes in the world, there needs to be some randomness, some shakeup, some change, some radical kind of overthrow, some remolding, some breaking down, moving of bricks from here to the other area, right? Building up a new order, in other words, right? That chaotic process of growth needs to happen. Otherwise, it just tends to go in the almost predetermined direction of destruction, right? In other words, more and more atrophied and more, so it needs that chaos in order to stay alive. So here's one reason why order needs to get shaken up. But then an immediate caution is whenever you go and try to shake up order, here's now where the rubber meets the road, right?
Yes.
So like, okay, cool. the thing is, whenever you think of shaking up order, or you have no right shaking up order unless you understand the order completely, and if you understand the new order or the change in the order that you're trying to initiate. If you think that, in other words, if you're going to try to take down the matrix, you better have a new matrix to put up. Okay?
Mm-hmm. You had to have someone replace it. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you think that it's just going to be nothing, then you're crazy. Mm-hmm. So it's like you need to understand, okay, well, there's the old order because of changing times and also because of atrophy and because of we're not living in Genghis Khan times anymore, and the Genghis Khan's man and the whatever, blah, blah, blah. Things need to be shaken up, but doesn't mean that it's not going to be a new thing. In other words, there needs to be, this is why it is always wise not to mess around with things, because if you realize that you have to think about the new order that you're putting on the consequences, second and third order consequences of your particular chaotic intervention, you then have to be very careful. It's like, I believe there's a Chinese saying that says, you rule a large nation like you cook a small fish, which is very gently. Like, you don't go throwing it around in the pan, that kind of a thing. Like, so in other words, when there are things such as orders, right? In this particular case, like you analogize as a large nation, a particular order, you are naive if you think that it or some kind of it might be in your mind a superstition. It might be in your mind, this is just tribalism, or it might be, it's just some kind of blindness due to capitalism or whatever. Whatever ism that you're saying, we just need to take it down. No, there's going to always be an ism. You need to have some other ism to put it up there with it that is in congruence with human nature. In other words, human nature is really what's at the base here. Okay? And unless you believe that human nature is infinitely malleable and you could just switch it in whichever direction you wish to go down in this particular socio-political aspect of what we're talking about, right? Then it is something that you have to contend with. And I tend to believe that it is something that you have to contend with. In other words, it does have a nature. Therefore, it does need an ism, a cave, a matrix, a set of biases, almost like something upon which the universe needs to reflect in order for you to have experience. It's almost like in order to have experience, you almost need to have a bias. I don't know if that makes sense.
Bias. Is there we could elaborate? Because let me think. Bias. That's like another way of thinking about it. I don't know if you could elaborate more on that. Yeah, perspective. Yeah, please, yeah.
So, in one way to kind of look at it is this, and I'm going to kind of do a poetic thing first, and then I'm going to try to see if that strikes a chord and gives us some new tools to play with. But so the kind of poetic thing is like, okay, well, as we know, our biological system, in terms of perception, leaves out more than it takes in, right? And just like if you're playing a harp, right? You don't just go playing every string back and forth at every other distance, you're not holding back, or guitar, whatever. Like, what you do is it's in the rhythm, which is the timing, and then the notes you're not plucking. In other words, the order that you're creating, right? And this order, this creation, this experience, right, needs to leave out many things and play a certain note, right? Just like so that you can experience, okay? So even in that regard, there are trade-offs. There's a realization that you can only sample a bit of it in order for it to make any sense. In other words, you need to come at it from a certain perspective, right? You need to, which is the same way of saying you need to have a certain bias. Or another way of saying you need to have something to bounce off. In other words, something that for you to call you, and for you to then separate the rest of the world from, which is, by the way, it's crazy because we all know the universe is one, right? So the fact that you're separating yourself at all means that you're only getting a certain perspective, by definition, right? So, and the only way to get to perceive yourself is to only see a particular perspective, right? So that's what I kind of mean when I say, sorry for the sound back here, but that's kind of what I mean when I say that to have a perspective or to experience, to touch, feel, to whatever, to be in here, to be the observer, right? You need, you basically, well, not to rehash it, but yeah, the whole point that I'm trying to get at is that you need a perspective, because otherwise you would be God almost, right? God is that which we imagine that has all perspectives, right? All space, all time, all power, all knowing, right? That is almost like shining from all directions and blah, 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 right? But any particular being has to exist in a particular framework, in a particular time, in a particular in terms of an order of magnitude, because you're not existing in the plane of electrons where certain other natural forces, in other words, let's say the weak and the strong forces in the nucleus of the atom are not stuff that you really have to worry about, because you live in a certain scale where it's more gravity that you have to worry about. But if you were 10 galaxies tall, then you would have to worry about relativity and space and time bending on you because you are really big, right? And that kind of a thing, right? So, in other words, you are living in a particular, within a particular distance. You know, you're not living as an atom or living as big as a galaxy, right? And you're living as a particular biological framework, on and on and on. And then we already talked about your perceptual framework, leaving out more than it takes in. So it's all perspective in order to get experience, which means bias, which means that if you think you're going to take away bias, no, you never do that. You just remove one bias with another. And also you may have rational biases, in other words, biases that you've questioned, which would be my particular admonishment, right? If I were to say, well, what there is to do? What are you talking about? Like, here's one thing that is to be done. Always look at your assumptions, right? Always look at the things that you don't question. Always go back and be like, well, anything that, for example, let's say rationality, right? If you just take it as a given that rationality is good, okay, you should go and question that, right? To find out the other side. Are there people who say irrationality is the way to go, or what was the case for the people who, so on and so forth? And then you may find out, there's this guy called Nietzsche, and he was a Dionysian, or more god of wine / chaos, right? Back to chaos again, kind of a focuser, right? So it's like, it's important to know, there is something, you got to always question, whatever it is you think is, truth, justice, and universal rights, or whatever it is, the religion of the day, the God of the day, which is the unquestioned actions of the day, the philosophical admonishment is to always look into those things and question them. But anyway, that's my rant.
Let me give the call number again. And guys, for those that's listening through, YouTube stream, Facebook, or on the call lines, if you feel that you want to ask a question, you can ask any question pertaining to this subject or anything that's on your mind. We'll open the floor for those that want to express. The call number again is 712-770-4160. The access code is 977-194#. I repeat, 712-770-4160. The access code is 977-194#. Tonight's subject, titled Chaos Reign Presents. Can there be order without chaos? Especially Ike. And I'm not going to say the last name. I'm on the butcher. And one thing to let people know, because my name is unique as well, that one thing I find common with speaking the English language, we get accustomed to certain things that is more easy to relate. But when we step in the line to really try to comprehend or say a person name that's using something different from English, it kind of has to restructure our way how we look at the word and thinking how to pronounce it properly, because this is somewhat of a spell, talking English, very complex language itself, As everybody know, at all area of their language, English can be mastered if you put the time in. But that's just me. I could be wrong. You want to elaborate on that? But yeah. Let me see. One question that came to mind, because I don't really talk about this on my channel. Because you mentioned earlier about with the old order and bring in a new order, or what they hear them say, new world order. I always look at that language when people reiterate. It's like we're moving on to a new age, Because everything has to constantly change, Now, how we find ourselves in this 21st century in this so-called new order will determine what we're trying to get out and what we're seeking throughout life, Because, like always, environment does change, and people, whether you want to believe it or not, either will change or don't change at all. You get me? People that stay stagnant will get behind, lost in the shuffle in the present time we're in now. I've noticed that even with people that lose their jobs or people that doesn't know what to do to maneuver in this environment, I think the biggest question that first should ask is, how do I really function in this new order? And you said yourself best, Ike, on your previous channel, on your previous stream, that who's going to create the next wave? We always see potential of the flying cars, the teleportations. Who's going to be the innovators to bring us into this new millennium, this new order, to things that we want to see to better our way of life, to make things more easy, I don't know if that's the best way to say it.
I think that
yeah, go ahead.
We need to it almost comes down back to that crazy thing, which is we need to put down the screens in order to notice that things are actually that there is work to be done outside of the screen. Do you know what I mean? The digital era and its particular growth and how it has sparked and increased efficiencies in many industries, so on and so forth, transportation, logistics, so on and so forth, has really seen a lot of economic growth, all that kind of stuff. But we've kind of forgotten that, okay, something as simple as transportation, we're still not anywhere close to it. In other words, if we're doing all these emails and even cryptocurrencies now and all this stuff, it's like, and we should have hyperloops everywhere, right?
Correct.
Least that, not regular silly trains, at least, but that, right? So just looking at infrastructure and the basic one being transportation, and everybody, that's why the first thing people tend to say is the flying car, but also the, let's say, public kind, like I mentioned, the hyperloop and so on and so forth. And they're also in energy, blah, blah, blah. That we need to put down the screens in order to focus on that, because that really is where the real frontier is, because the real danger is going to come from the real chaotic madness is a lot, thinking that the world is going to expand, all boats are going to be lifted up by using the same old means, right? The same internal combustion engine, fertilizer, pesticide kind of growth that worked in one era, so on and so forth. So it's a lot of times we are okay with certain kinds of no-nos, like, hey, you don't build anything quickly. That's kind of one thing. Like, for example, by we, I mean, let's say in the West, we look at, like, either China or, let's say, the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, and certain infrastructure builds happening so quickly, and we're so surprised by it, right? And because over here we just kind of assume that, oh no, things are slow, things are clunky, things should not happen, and it is something again that you should question. Back to the point about questioning whatever assumptions, whatever things that are just floating in the air. Question that and wonder like, oh, why do things take so long, or so hard, so expensive to do here, so cumbersome, and why do we just kind of accept that?
You know, it might think why it takes so long, because outside of America, I know, particularly China, from what I'm hearing, and there's articles that reveal this, they already accelerate much faster than what we are not seeing here in the West. And I think not China, but also Europe as well. Especially they have like the super train. That's what they call it in China. Mm-hmm. Trains that can go through like 0 to 200. Could be wrong. And they also got, and you might know this, Ike, they also produce now an artificial sun in China. So when we look at in today's present day, and we look at outside this Western Hemisphere, we are way behind. Right now, we just going to start having 5G, while everybody else outside of here is moving on to 6G. So I always think that the innovation was always here, but I always question who really is preventing real technical advancement for everybody else to consume and enjoy. That should be the biggest question a person should ask. Because other nations are already up to time. But we look at, I can't speak for Africa. I've never been to Africa. I eventually will visit there, hopefully, to really see, just to get a feel of life, and then see what is potential, And matter of fact, since I mentioned about Africa, I look at that country in itself, 54 countries, has a lot of potential, for real growth. With innovation, technology to make life a little easy for people in Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Tanzania, all of them, especially ones that speak English, that there is room for growth. And I think what the age is doing, they're trying, I guess, make Africa catch up a little bit, helping them catch up a little bit than what the West was denying for centuries. But that's what I see it. I don't know if you could elaborate a little more. Maybe I'm missing something.
So basically, to dispel a certain thing, like, okay, if you're in this world of hyperconnectivity, email, global marketplace, you know about outsourcing, you know about corporations that you invest in, and you have your 401k in, and depending on your retirement for, you know that they're involved in the global marketplace, right? So it's almost like that is an assumption that you already have, right? Whether you've questioned it or not. And then you can't get mad at it when anyone looks into any emerging market and tries to solve problems. In other words, bring value, right, by copying certain things that have already been tried out in the West, right, and been perfected in China because they were they were and are the manufacturers of the, typical, those kinds of goods. And so they've gotten to that point where it's like, okay, cool, here's this other kind of market here, this other kind of thing here, there's some opportunity here, blah, 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 and they're out there doing that. There's only one way to look at it, which is, okay, well, you either trying to participate in that market or you're not going to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
It's like, okay, well, do you want to now shut down the world and go back to tribal lines or something like that? Right? But let me tell you, but definitely there is something about cultural export in terms of soft power, because all countries, each nation is trying to compete with each other through their hard power, and then there's the economic power, and then there's even softer power such as cultural power, which is how they export their culture and so on and so forth. And I would say that the West in general, especially let's just say United States, has its soft power game very nice in terms of its reputation. Regardless of what you may think, its reputation is still better than the reputation of other countries, let's say, right?
Yeah.
You could ask people, go down to Accra right now and ask who they would prefer, generally speaking, to have a factory or own a business in their neighborhood. An American versus, and then you name any, America's soft power in terms of its cultural, like the idea of America, in other words, is quite profound and very, shall we say, enticing, and also has produced in terms of the capitalism aspect. I mean, just kind of restating the obvious. Obviously, that's why people want to come to America and so on and so forth, right? So it's like, still, there is a reason other than some people who may just look at it, it's just all pure military domination. It's like, no, well, there is a soft power aspect that America is also quite good at. You got to at least give it credit for the fact that people actually like it.
Yes. Yeah, they do like it. And there's many opportunity here in America for people that's foreigners or whatever, and they take advantage more than people here. And there's reasons for that. I'm not going into detail for that. But like I said, America is a capitalist country, that we're aware of. And to really thrive and to have any, I guess, survival in this, you're going to have to play this capitalist game, Now, I'm not sure if you can a capitalist, but you sure as hell could study the game and know how can I benefit in this society to my benefit, Because, I think
look into the technology, because technology, and in terms of either what we talked about in terms of the real space of atoms, or even in the space of just pure business, starting a business entrepreneurship, putting your creativity out there, failing forward, learning, right?
Yeah.
You got. That's why you look into those spaces to try to see if you can harness. Because you're talking about you got to play the game. Okay, so this is how you play the game, right? So to see if you can harness certain things, because capitalism is also using money to leverage the kind of change you want to see in the world, right? Because if you want to look at the big game, okay, let's look at the biggest players, okay, like Warren Buffett or the Bill Gates of the world, like that kind of a thing. Or you can even want to take it into family dynasty world and talk about Rothschild or something, right? You can take it wherever you want to take it. But the idea is using money as a tool to see certain change that you can make in the world. But there was always a history to how these people came into that kind of control of capital, right? And given the technological change and rapidity of technological change, so on and so forth, and the general chaos that you take advantage of in the market, you can definitely play your part, right, in trying to see what you can make happen in order to kind of add to our full progress here. Because if you change the life of 1 billion people, you too will become a billionaire, and then you too might be able to try to make manifest through money certain things that you want to see in the world.
Yeah, and like any man, we try to manifest something very special for, I guess we want to manifest, like, a lot of people want to be rich or inspired to be wealthy. And like always, you can't just think it. You have to always take the necessary actions. You might have to do a deep study on what is the best outcome to attaining it. What steps, what real work is needed to really become, let's say, a person want to be rich. I mean, you study the people that have done it and maybe implement or take a step further. I mean, there's certain playbooks you could follow, but, like I said, we live in a more high technical age now where things are a little bit more accelerating, and there's many ways to make money. I think it's just always you got to apply what you know and try to expand on it. And if you don't know, you take necessary information to get the knowledge just to, to make it better or make it work for yourself. And I think you said early in the broadcast that you're more of a doer. And I think that's one of the things our people have to start taking more of a proactive approach. I mean, I could sit there and read certain books about economics, but if I'm not participating in the economic game, it's only, it's child's play. It's nothing, And that's one of the biggest challenge. I'll probably ask this question. What you feel, I mean, in regards to your own experience, what made you take more of the doing approach or the action approach? What steps have you done to really make yourself more active, like take the action? Like, I don't know if that's a good question to ask.
Yeah, so that is an excellent question, sir. And if I got about like 20 more minutes, and then I have to make this other call.
Yeah, that's fine, because that is half an hour is good enough. I should tell you, but you go on, listen.
Okay. Let's see here. Now, part of it has to do with temperament, okay? So there's an aspect where it's like, oh, if you're a certain kind of person, okay, then giving general advice, right? If you're someone that is high in terms of, let's say, creativity, or you're high in order, or in other words, we have psychological dispositions, okay? If you're in one category, giving general advice is always a little dangerous, but if you state up front that, okay, part of what you're saying is a psychological disposition, right? Then now I can talk about more generally what other people who are not just action-based, right? Because the thing about it is I'm also analytical and so on and so forth, but it's all about your relative strength, okay? And what I mean by that is you need to, first of all, come to terms with the reality that most things are like riding a bicycle. I think that part needs to be, you need to learn that one way or the other, okay? And we learn that, for example, if we stick to anything difficult, I don't know, maybe you started taking martial arts and you do martial arts for 8 years or something, you get to see the results of consistency and growth and certain things like that. So it's like you get to see that doing stuff and sticking to it and the repetitive, you get what I'm saying, that actually putting the rubber to the road really makes all the difference. That is something that you need to come to, you need to see one way or the other, okay? And then, all right, you simply have to understand how to manage your time, because that's what it becomes after that, okay? It's after you realize, okay, well, you gotta do things, then it becomes, well, how do I manage my time? Well, now, I would say that for me is kind of how I approach it. Because you're asking, how did I become this kind of action? Like, it's like, okay, well, I got to do stuff. And luckily, I'm the kind of guy that likes to do stuff. And I know that I have these different arenas that I can do stuff in. So it's like, well, how do I remove distraction so that I can pursue and automate things? Because basically, I want my mind, and to bring it back to this chaos thing again, I want my conscious mind to be only aware of, shall we say, I want a lot of things to be unconscious, okay? I want what I eat and what I drink and so on and so forth, and a lot of the mundane things in life, and the fact that you will work out, and the fact that you will follow a certain routine. You want to routinize many things by doing practice, create an automatic situation for them, and then you ship them out to the unconscious. The unconscious rolls them. It becomes a habit, a routine, a system, right? So that you have a larger portion of your conscious attention can then pay attention to chaos, the growth, the opening up, the trying of new things, the creative, right? So that is, it is all from this particular worldview that makes me kind of throw myself into doing things, right? So in a certain sense, I think that you need to, first of all, see the world as an arena for action, rather than, it's almost like, I think it's Jordan Peterson that emphasizes this, like, you can look at the world as a place filled with things, okay? Or you can look at the world as an arena for action.
I see. Excellent. And, you know, I'm hoping for young men will take more of this information to heart, because it comes down to, you know, and this is where we all fall as men of any age, that we get stagnant in our ways and we don't take the appropriate action to accomplish the greater goal within our own lives. And I say personally that from as much talk you see throughout social media and YouTube, like, I feel the average man, and this is my perspective, that, you know, the talk can be cheap after a while, because you hear it enough time in the circle in these spaces of the issues that black men face here in the West, but I don't hear much real actual action, besides I take action for myself. So, and that's one thing I tell, and I probably will express to my brothers, like, come around more, that say, you know, it's nice to talk about the problems, but unless we're really doing some proactive actions, it's just babble. It's waste of time, you know? And we don't be getting caught up into constant babble where there's nothing accomplished at the end of the day, you know? So, yeah, I totally agree on that. I think we should take more action as we get older, or what we're trying to accomplish as a collective men. My final question, and before I get my final question, for anybody have a question now, I'm probably going to end up in a few minutes anyway. The call number is 712-770-4160. The access code 977-194-pound. I repeat, 712-770-4160. The access code is 977-194-pound. Tonight's subject, Chaos Reign presents, Can There Be Order Without Chaos? With Ike. Looking forward to, or moving forward to the 21st century, or I call it 2021, what do you have lined up, Ike?
That is a very, very good question, and a very good last question, you know. What I have lined up is this. I'm trying to become a more strategic person. In other words, someone who thinks more steps ahead than I typically do. So as we have already been talking about, I am someone that takes action, right? The opposite, or what that's the trade-off, right? It's obvious what the trade-off is, which is that I tend not to focus on the steps ahead. I'm more of a shoot first, ask questions later type, because although you can't do both. You can't be taking action and also be infinitely contemplative and strategize, right? And you can't be good at all. So I've known for a long time that the kind of data crunching side of me, I don't like data crunching, you know, analysis in terms of tending to project forward, you know, and not analyze pros and cons, look this way, look that way, think about this, and formalize that. It's like I tend not to like that so much, okay? I rather just hop in, and some people have asked, like, oh, well, but you're an engineer. What do you mean you're not a strategic person? Well, it's about relative strengths, right, and personality types. Not saying I'm not good at analysis. I'm just saying that I know my strength, and it's more favored towards taking action and being intuitive that way. So basically, I say that to say this. I'm trying to expand my strategic thinking in 2021, right? So I do have a plan for my business. I'm trying to expand a certain aspect of my business, Prometheus Engineering, to include staff augmentation services for state contracts, okay? And I'm going to try to document the process also through my YouTube channel, for example. So that's kind of like one particular goal, and I have the steps to go towards on that. And obviously continue to grow my YouTube channel, right? Continue to increase or improve pretty much implement the plans that I already have right now for the sound quality, the background quality, the lighting quality, and also the delivery quality and also the content and learning as I go along there. So that's generally what 2020 holds for me. Learn to be more strategic, expand my engineering business in this particular regard that I mentioned, and then also expand the YouTube content. So we'll see.
Excellent, excellent. Oh, one other thing I did not mention to people that listening for the first time, you're also a music artist. I believe you have, I'm not sure if you have an album, because you have a SoundCloud. Am I right, Ike?
Yeah, I do. There's an album available on Spotify or Apple Music or Amazon. And yes, there is a SoundCloud. You can also find it for free on YouTube. It's all one word. We Are Soul Rising. That's S-O-L Rising. S-O-L Rising. We Are Soul Rising. All one word. Type that into Google, and you should be able to find that, right? That's another thing I'm doing in 2021 is I'm releasing some tracks, one of which I play generally in my channel right now, but it's not released yet. So putting the new album together, and in 2021, gonna drop that, and it should be fun.
Okay, yeah, I can't wait. You know, I was trying to find some music to really close out. I think I found it. I can play it on your theme music if you want. I could close out the show.
Likely if you got it.
Oh yeah, I have it. Because I probably will, like, one thing with me moving forward in 2021 is because I know some brothers have certain projects and certain things. I probably will start to do a few selective brothers, depending on their project a little bit, just like I can. Because I want to participate a little more in helping facilitate, empowerment for small people, the male part. Because one thing for us black men, we could donate more to each other more often. I think that's one of the weaknesses because as much time we invest our money in something that doesn't give us sometimes a return, one thing is certain that we can help share dollars into the pot would be a start. You get me? To get in the habit of just donating. You get me? And I think I learned from you personally, from watching you told us another brother, how you don't think you need to do it. And a lot of them, they think that they just do it. That's crazy. But they don't understand the concept of why you just do it, because you develop a habit to not always contemplate or think you say the person deserves it. I say, you know what? I'm just going to donate anyway because I feel it's going to be for the better good. And not only my blessings will come back to me tenfold. You get me?
Yeah, amen. You're not gonna get I believe in generosity. I made a video called "Generosity is a Superpower" and so on and so forth because I think that, and I explained the mechanism of the whole hypothesis that basically if you trying to get money, you need to demonstrate mastery over money, which part of which is giving money and scaring yourself because when anyway, you know what I mean. So.
And I tell you, people, man, this man is the real deal. And at times, I watch other people donate, and I think to myself, I can see why you do it, because there is a science into the madness, And one thing is certain that a lot of us, especially some of us men, we're very selfish. We can improve on that, be more generous. And I think it's going to come around. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. All right, Ike, that's pretty much it. This is I guess, structured show. I think my question was answered, and I hope people that put into thought about the chaos in the order, it explains for itself. And like always, for those that don't know Ike, I'm going to put his YouTube channel in the description, and I'm probably going to find a link to his SoundCloud for people that want to listen to get a feel and eventually want to buy the album. I'll put the description for those who want to listen to Ike music. It's pretty good. I think one of the few things that Mr. Samuels played the first time when I didn't know you made music was the first video or song that you made that played on his channel months ago. And I said, who's that? And lo and behold, when I check you out, I said, oh, you that creative song. I said, that's what's up. Ike, you're a big reggae artist fan too, am I right?
Oh, well, I'm a big reggae fan. I'm a big music fan in general.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
Especially generally speaking on the lyrical side of things. I'm a word guy. You may or may not notice, but so I tend to glom onto like hip hop, for example, hip hop, dancehall, things that kind of showcase a lot of lyricism. So and in all different kinds of music as well. So yeah, I love it all.
Right. Excellent. All right, Ike. I think that's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna hold your time. I appreciate you coming on as a guest to on this particular special broadcast to end 2020 on a good note. You know, I hope to bring it back soon, and probably will focus maybe on the business side of things. Mostly, I like to really delve in your head about the possibility of Africa, because you did say something about people should get a bank account, but I'll say that in the future broadcast. Got to figure out the title. Is that cool?
Man, well, there you go. That's a good, nice little cliffhanger to leave there. Thank you very much. It was a fun conversation, and looking forward to having more in the future.
Yes, I do. Take care, my brother, and see you in 2020. Thank you.
All right.
All right. And to everybody that was listening to today's stream, you know, if you missed this stream, you always catch the play back like always. And like I said, there really is no real order without chaos. And it's been displayed here. My good friend Ike laid down the groundwork of it. And you're not getting no complaints on my side about it. One thing is to know that, because I go by the name Chaos Reign, I hope people don't take this label lightly. You know, I can be very chaotic at times, and I think I don't express it enough because of the acronym for the name. But trust me, when I'm in my flow, and I really get into my, I can be very chaotic. But like I said before, 2021 is going to be a very good year. Regardless how this year ended, I tell everybody that have loved ones or have gone through very trying times, this is just the beginning. And the only thing you could do at this point, or as a people, is to survive whatever is here or what is to come. Mind you, this is just the beginning. I think you think it's going to get good, but it possibly might get worse. The only question that you should answer for yourself is how you're willing to fight this adversity and really fight for your own survival and come out of any unknown circumstance or situation on top. Because I'm going to come out on top, and I'm going to try to come out on top by any means necessary. And you should always have that thinking, by any means necessary. So let 2021 be that year for you, man and woman. Whatever was left this year, you put to the side and you jump forward into the future for a better and prosperous new year, or I should say 2021. So, like always, thank you for listening to this stream. Oh, and one other thing, what I said earlier, the very first stream I did on here was a few music, but I think the very first broadcast, from what I can remember, and it's hard to find, but I know personally because I always remember, 5 years ago, was when I talked about homosexuality. And the story in that was because I always had a problem with it and never liked it, but I find literature to explain what it is, what is the purpose and the end game. As you know, moving forward on 2021, I probably won't be dealing with it much. I'll try to make a conscious effort not to deal with it because I feel I dedicated for the last 4, maybe 5 years certain old blog talk shows to some old shows that were on YouTube or even on my own archives, which I have, where I could probably reveal, maybe in time, maybe not, that I have gone into great detail about homosexuality. I think moving forward now, I think all the information is laid out, and what people do with the information is totally up to you. I do not care at this point. I did the work, so if people want to question it or whatever, if you can't go back to the archives on T.R.S, then you might have to go back to my podcasting, which is on, other outlets. I think Anchor, Spotify, etc., and possibly maybe some on YouTube. I don't know. But anyway, the information there, just type it up and you'll find for yourself. But that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to end it here. Be on the lookout for the next broadcast. And till next time, take care and good night.
What has been evolved, the spirit and the flesh, the emotions at the rest, the cerebral will contest, propelling the unrest. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we born Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Of a blade, with gratitude and rage, we touch another page with delirious delight, impervious to light. This vitality and might encourages the flight. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we born Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within.
I'd like to thank special guest Ike Ogiamien for coming through on this unique topic. You can follow him through all his social media, and you can get his music through SoundCloud and other outlets. That will be in the description of this video. And like always, comment, subscribe, and like this video. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChaosReign7. Thank you for listening, and until next time, let the chaos reign.